Welcome back to M&A Access. My name is Ekaterina, and today I'm here in the studio with Michael Brown. Michael, you are a managing partner at Kingdom Architects.
That is correct.
Yes, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. So let's start with your background first. Share a little bit about yourself and how you got into M&A space.
Sure. It's kind of a long story, so I'll try to make it shorter. So I started my career at the Federal Reserve Bank out of college. And then I got into the capital markets after my first job at the Fed. I was in Kansas City and had a unique opportunity to work on fixed income trading floors for a large super regional bank there. And that's a rare job in Kansas City. Typically you have to go to New York, to Manhattan or Chicago to work on something like that. And so I spent 25 years in the capital markets. Primarily on the institutional wealth management side. So on top of running the fixed income platforms and trading floors with our traders and our other investors, I worked primarily with Fortune 100 companies. So unique experience to work with some global organizations that were publicly traded, worked all around the world. Did that through 2012, 2013. Retired from that, and we founded a business in the sporting goods vertical. And so we grew it over a decade, and I had an exit with private equity and sold that in 22. And during that process, got to meet the gentleman that would later become my partner. He did the exit transaction for us. And I just kind of fell in love with the business. I was pretty intimately involved in the sale of our company. It was adjacent to what I'd done in big banking, as I call it, in the capital markets, and had an opportunity to partner with him. So I bought into his firm, and that was 3 years ago. I've since actually bought him out.
So you bought Kingdom Architects 3 years ago, correct?
Well, I joined the firm. It was actually a firm called Bana Advisory, and my partner and I had it. And then when I bought him out, we rebranded and renamed it Kingdom Architects. And that happened actually last year is when we did a big rebranding and brought in another vertical to our business, and we've been growing it from there.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your first major deal where you truly felt like, okay, I belong in this industry?
Yeah, and it's kind of a cool story. I say cool; it's a crazy story. We'd also do business consulting and growth advisory for scalability of companies. And the first deal was I had a friend of mine who owned a large veterinarian center, and he wanted to expand. His business was really growing, and he wanted to build some more locations or possibly do some acquisitions. And so he hired us to do that. And the day that I received his check and his contract with me, I found out it was on a Monday that I received it. Over the weekend, he was with his daughter at a rodeo, and he got struck by lightning and died. Crazy deal. And started talking to his wife, who was not involved in the business, and we realized quickly, because of the nature of his business, he had doctors that worked for him, and she had no interface with the business whatsoever. We needed to sell it. And it turned into a consulting job into an M&A deal. And we were able to actually get that deal done in 6 months, and we had such a successful transaction that she'll never have to worry about money ever again. And we were able to do a good deal with the doctors. We sold it to a very large strategic, and it was a home run by all counts, coming out of a really tragic situation. Mm-hmm. And I think that was when I felt like I know what I'm doing, and I can help people. And that's also when I really saw that it's about people's lives. It's not just about, I think a lot of people, M&A and private equity, it's just about flipping businesses and selling businesses, but there's people behind all that. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I kind of felt like I had arrived.
Yeah. So speaking of people, deals built on trust. you actually emailed me and said that this should be the topic of this episode. And I'm interested, what does that phrase mean to you in the context of M&A?
Yeah, I think, again, I think it can be seen as such a transactional business because a lot of times it is in some ways. I mean, a seller is probably only going to have one transaction in their life. PE firms or strategics or family offices are doing multiple deals, and a lot of times it can become very transactional. And I don't think people pay enough attention to really the trust aspect that has to be built to do a successful deal. And that's on a couple different levels. I mean, you have to have the seller has to have trust in the buyer, and as an M&A representative, you have to build and foster that kind of relationship and trust. We need to have trust with the buyer to know that we're shepherding our client with care and that we're putting them in good hands and that we're finding the right person on the other side of the transaction. The seller needs to trust us that we're going to take care of them and really shepherd them in a way that's meaningful not only for themselves and their family, but also their employees and their company and their vendors and their clients. And if you don't have that trust, or that trust breaks down in any place of that cycle of that transaction, the deal goes away. And so I don't think, from my perspective, people pay enough attention to that.
Why is it so important? Besides the fact that obviously everything can just blow up and the deal can just fall apart, why is trust so critical in transactions?
Well, I think it comes back to what I was just talking about, where there's people on the other side of the deal. And so you're really affecting their lives. So if you've got a founder that's this is their baby, they've grown it, a lot of the times they've had it for 10, 20, 30 years, they put their heart and soul into it. They're trusting everybody involved, whether it's the M&A advisor, whether it's the buyer, the lawyers that are involved, the CPA firm. They're trusting them to shepherd that process. Not only does that affect them and their family, but it affects their employees. That's a big piece of it. You're impacting lives, and there's so many terrible stories about what happens when those things go wrong, when companies get acquired and they end up terminating employees or redoing the whole thesis of the business. At the end of the day, it comes down to people's lives, and I think it's important to pay attention to that.
Okay, I do want you to tell me a story now about a time when a relationship unexpectedly opened the door to a major opportunity for you.
A time when a relationship we had an opportunity. We did a big deal in the media space, and we had a relationship to us come in from a church, and there was an opportunity that we looked at, and honestly, we tried to pass on it a couple times because we felt it was going to be an extremely difficult deal to do. We typically don't take a deal unless we feel like we can be successful, and we really tried to pass on the deal, and it kept coming back around, and it became clear to us that we needed to do this deal. And so we ended up taking the deal. My partner at the time ran point on it. I ran the back end of it with our operations and our team on getting the deal through. And it ended up being a major home run for us from a transaction standpoint. We were able to give the seller everything that they wanted and what they were trying to accomplish with this piece of media. And the media ended up going into the right hands, and it was a marquee deal for us, and it was a deal that had a lot of visibility for us. And so that came to us from a conversation at church. So not your typical way that a deal gets referred to you.
What are some of the biggest challenges business owners face during a transaction beyond just numbers?
I think some of the biggest challenges are, first of all, they've got to keep running their business. It's very easy to take your eye off the ball when you're in the middle of a transaction, and that's where we come in. We really try to alleviate that pain point for them. But that's a big piece of it is you've got to continue to keep running your business and continue to grow it and keep doing all the things that you've been doing to make it successful. And that's kind of the number one piece that we counsel our clients on is don't drop the ball on that side of it. Let us handle all of these things, because when you go through a transaction, it's very time consuming, it's very laborious, it takes a lot of your resources, not only from you as the owner, but it can suck a lot of resources from your personnel as well on your management team or your C-suite, and it's critical that that you not get pulled into that vortex, because then we've seen it where companies can really lose their way during the process.
Mm-hmm. How do you deal with those business owners that just can't let go of their company and very emotionally attached to it?
Well, that's tough, and I think they're all emotionally compromised is what I call it. And so we really try to address that at the beginning of a transaction and really vet that out of, are you really ready to make this exit? And have you thought about the emotional cost of it? And I see our competition, I don't think a lot of people focus on that, the emotional cost of a deal, because it is. I can tell you when we sold our business we had for a decade, I cried. I literally cried. It was
for
like,
how many days?
Well, luckily it was just one, but you sign it and you think, oh, I'm going to get a big fat check and life's going to be great. And we did. And then you sit down and realize what you've just done and the life experience you've been through. And I cried, and I've seen that with a lot of our sellers. It's very emotional to let your baby go. And, to your point, sometimes people can get through the process and, they think they're ready, but then it becomes real, right? When it gets down to, okay, we're 2-3 weeks out, and you're going to sign a piece of paper, and if it's a deal where they're going to go away, sometimes they stay on, sometimes they get a check and leave the business, and I think those are harder because if they realize they're getting ready to leave and they're done, that becomes very emotional the closer you get.
Do you have any tips on how to overcome that emotional attachment? Like go to therapy, like look at the check more often, look at the numbers, maybe a Ferrari.
Yeah, maybe go look at your bank account when you're feeling that way. I think just trying to be prepared for it and have something on the other side to do. I see a lot of people that they haven't thought about what life looks like afterwards. So have a plan, right? Whether you're going to, take some time off and travel, whether you're going to go look at buying another company or build another company, or are you going to retire, are you going to volunteer, are you going to spend time with your family, but have a plan in place that'll mitigate some of that emotional response so that it's not a surprise to you when you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I just sold my company and now I don't control it, I'm not in charge of it. If you're not there anymore, am I going to sit at home and stare out the window? That's not a good place to be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So do you have, or maybe you have witnessed, especially emotional case?
Well, I think my story that I told you,
right.
It's that's probably the most emotional I've seen. Here was a grieving widow that not only is she dealing with that, but she's now dealing with having to sell her husband's life work when they were talking about building and growing it, and now she's handing that off to somebody else. I can't think of anything more emotional than that. And so that was a very unique example for us to walk her through that. But also, she was scared. She had a lifestyle where, she told me and shared with me at one point, I don't even know what's in the checkbook. I just buy things. If I want it, I go buy it. They were in a very unique position. He had built wealth and had a very successful business. And so if she wanted something, she bought it. She didn't know how much money there was. She didn't know how much money they had. She didn't care. And so that was unique in trying to handle all those emotions and prepare her. And she was scared of, can I still have that? Like, I don't even know what a budget is. She was a smart lady and she certainly could have figured it out, but she was 50 years old and had not done that for 30 years. So that was probably the most emotional one. It was a joy to walk through that with her. I mean, it was emotional for us too. Very emotional.
I can imagine.
So
going back to trust, how do you build your own credibility?
For our firm or me personally, or
let's start with a firm first.
Well, I think as a firm, your trust gets built in the way you handle yourself in the market, right? I mean, it's that starts with your clients. It starts with your employees. It starts with all of the context, family offices, private equity, strategic buyers, how you treat them, how you approach a deal, what your mindset is. Do you have humility? I'm sure we all have horror stories out there of people that, when you start dealing with money, it's really easy to get puffed up and have an ego and start acting a little bit different way. And I think to build trust, you shouldn't do that. You need to be mindful of the image you're projecting and how you're working with everybody. I think that's how your firm builds trust.
What separates a successful buyer-seller relationship from one that falls apart during the process?
Well, I think coming back to trust, it's making sure there's opportunities for buyer and seller to build that relationship during the process, during pre-LOI, during LOI, during due diligence, during definitive agreements. Make sure there's plenty of opportunities that buyer and seller are aligned in culture, in vision, in post-transaction functionality and what they're going to do. That's critical because if they go through the process and they don't like each other and it becomes, where they're not getting along, then you run into problems of the deal falling apart. And hopefully, if you've done your job as an M&A advisor, you've gotten ahead of a lot of that by finding the right buyer, and you've vetted that to begin with. But it still takes time for them to build relationship and trust, and so you have to foster that. And I think one of the biggest key points is a M&A advisor is knowing when to step back. So knowing when it's time now for you two to have the relationship and not me to have the relationship. I don't need to be in the middle of this any longer. I need to let you now have time together and work together, and the M&A advisor slowly keeps stepping back so they're not in the middle of that relationship.
We're taking just a quick break from this conversation to let you know about some upcoming conversations that you could be a part of too. This summer in Chicago at AMA's Summer Conference, you have the opportunity to meet with hundreds of decision makers with over $1 billion in the transactional buying power. There will be panels with insights like what you find in this podcast, hundreds of meetings happening, as well as really great networking opportunities. You can find out more at ameconference.com. Hope to see you there.
Okay, so I am Gen Z, and I want to ask you about red flags right now.
Okay. All right. Wow. All right.
Tell me some red flags that immediately show you that this deal partnership may become difficult later.
I think probably one first red flags we pay attention to is when seller talks down to buyer, when seller sees themselves in a superior position. Buyer sees themselves in a superior position to seller. We've got the money, we're the experts, we know what we're doing. That kind of a haughty disposition, and you see that. You do see that out there. And once we recognize that, we try to mitigate that or back away from it quickly because it will blow a deal later. Because again, most of your founders, at least our clients, most of our founders have been in business for a long time. They've bootstrapped their company. They're not in the business of trading businesses. And so if they feel like they're being disrespected or talked down to, or if a buyer is condescending, that's a big red flag. And really you see that in their approach to how they ask questions in pre-LOI diligence, management meetings, and in diligence, where there's a way to ask questions to get the answers, especially if you're probing on a negative issue or a sensitive issue versus just going in and breaking China and acting like we're the experts and you're the dum-dum that doesn't know that this is a problem in your business. That's probably one of the biggest red flags I see.
Mm-hmm. How do you deal with people like that? Do you just block them?
Sometimes there's been times when we actually kill the deal because they start acting that way. We're like, buyers out sellers out and they don't want to deal with it, and we support that. A lot of times, you can have a conversation. They may not even know they're coming across that way, and so we'll gently have a conversation with, hey, this is a Midwestern owner in, small town Kentucky. Mm-hmm. You can't come in here and start acting like you're, the pro from Dover and that you know everything. Why don't you tone that down a little bit? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I don't think they're trying to act that way. I think it's just some of the deal, and so that's how we mitigate that red flag.
Mm-hmm. So different cultures, basically.
Different cultures, different approaches to business. Again, that whole I think the biggest mistakes buyers can make is when they realize, to the seller, it's probably the only time they're ever going to be in a transaction like that. Mm-hmm. It's a major, major life event. It's like a wedding or a funeral. You're coming into a major life event, whereas typical buyers, if they're sophisticated, this is just another deal to them. So you have to bridge that gap. For everybody involved.
Mm-hmm. What about your gut? How often do you trust your own gut while working with people?
I trust my gut a lot. It's interesting. There's an old book by Malcolm Gladfrey called Blink, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this book, but he talks about those gut moments that we, as a sophisticated society, we don't listen to anymore, but we've listened to it since we were cavemen. And it tells you something, and the way that book starts is pretty interesting. But he talks about a museum that bought a famous piece of art, and they spent a year studying it and concluded it was authentic. And they decided to bring in the last two experts after they bought it to show it off, that they were going to put it on display. And one of the experts came in, and the minute they took off it was like a marble statue, and the minute they took off the covering, the expert was like, it's fake. And they're like, what? No. He's like, it's fake. And they're like, we spent a year doing this. He's like, it's fake. They didn't believe him. They brought in another lady from Europe, same thing. They took the cover off of it, and she said the first word that popped in her mouth was fresh. Mm-hmm. And she's like, it's a fake. And they're like, how can you know that after 2 seconds? And their gut was telling them it was fake. And they cut it open, and it was fake. It was a very good fake, but it was fake. And so that book always made sense to me because I don't think we listen to that gut. And so I try to pay a lot of attention to that, whether it's with people. If you realize these people aren't right for the deal, maybe it's somebody we're interviewing to take to market. I'm like, this is not, my gut's telling me this is not right. We're not right for them. Deal points can give you that gut check of this doesn't feel right. I don't something in my gut's not settling, telling me this is wrong in some way. I think it's very important to listen to those things and then go validate it, but there's a lot of that in our business.
Mm-hmm. What about networking? Do you have any networking tips?
Gosh, it's spreading seeds, right? My networking tip is talk to as many people as you can and be gracious and try to build relationships, because you never know ever when something significant is going to come out of the most smallest detail of something that you've done in networking. I had that actually today, as a matter of fact. I had a guy who I barely talked to and finally got on a call with him, and a few things transaction. I realized that we knew some things about each other we didn't anticipate, and it opened up a huge door for us to do some business with some very significant capital behind it that I didn't know was there. And if I hadn't paid attention to that, if I'd just blown it off and I don't have time for that today, I would have missed a massive opportunity. And so I think that you just never know. It's always the relationships at first that you think probably there's nothing there. They will surprise you and bring you a fruit that you just haven't imagined. So it's important to really network as much as you can. and pay attention and try to talk to as many people as you can.
Mm-hmm. And trust your gut.
And trust your gut. And trust your gut. Exactly.
What about reputation? How do you keep your reputation solid in M&A space?
Well, I think kind of talking about all these things we've been talking about with trust and how you behave, treating everybody with respect when we're out talking to private equity or family offices or, again, strategics, really respecting them and trying to understand their point of view and really dig into what their motivations are. Doing the same with your own clients and just how you conduct yourself in the marketplace. I mean, your reputation is all you have. So you're going to have challenges in deals and challenges in networking and other areas, and I think how you conduct yourself, how you treat people. I think we sometimes, now I sound like a boomer. I'm not a boomer. I'm a Gen X, but I think sometimes for the Gen Zs that you're so used to the phone, you're so used to the keyboard warriors where you can say whatever, and I mean you can't do that. You got your people. You got to treat people the right way and have respect and have respect for them and where they're coming from and be empathetic and understand that. That all builds reputation, right? I mean, let's face it, nobody's going to do business if you're a jerk. I mean, you could have the best mousetrap in the world, but if you're a jerk, who wants to do business with you?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely. What trends are you currently seeing in middle market M&A space that other business owners should be paying closer attention to?
Well, I think the activity's picking up. I read something this week that M&A activity's looking to be the highest in 10 years this year. I'm seeing a lot of capital that's decided to get back into the market and look for good deals. So I think for a company thinking about exiting, there's a lot of money that's chasing deals. It's a great opportunity to maybe get a higher multiple and be a little bit more selective about who you do business with and who you sell your company to. That's a big trend that I'm seeing out there. Of course, there's always the certain specific industries that we tend to gravitate towards, but I also see an openness to other industries that aren't the flavor of the day. Again, people are looking for novel ideas and trying to find I always say that the riches are in the niches. So trying to find those niches that people aren't paying attention to. Like, for example, everybody's chasing HVAC, right? HVAC's the thing. Now, if we can find a commercial HVAC or retail HVAC, that reoccurring commercial services. But there's a lot of other business that I see folks step over that are great businesses that are just as lucrative and you can grow them as well and have other opportunities. So that's kind of the trend I see right now. But I think it's a positive year for M&A. And we're really trying to get that message out to businesses that are thinking about exiting.
What about AI? AI and technology, do you think that will kind of soon erase relationship side of M&A or ruin it a little bit?
No, I don't. I mean, I think relationship is always going to be a big part of it because when you're dealing with money, I've been in the money business my whole life, and at the end of the day, it's going to still be about relationship. You want to do business with people that you like and that you understand and that you're going to get along with. And we may have AI in all these businesses, but there's going to have to be some humans directing the AI. So it's going to change things, but I don't think it's going to impact the relationship side of the business. I think relationships are going to be more meaningful as we try to filter through AI and we, start talking to machines in everything we do, right? I mean, it's going to be to the point where everywhere we go, we're going to be talking to a machine. Mm-hmm. And I think because of that, it's going to drive relationships to be even more important.
Mm-hmm. What about younger professionals in M&A space? What advice would you give them? Like, what kind of mindset should they have going into the industry?
I think that not to be a plug for AMAA, but I think use the resources that are out there, right? I mean, use the networking events, use the associations that are out there that can allow you to meet people and learn from them and build relationship. Again, being the guy with gray hair now, I'm to an age where I want to pour into younger people because I know nobody gets successful on their own. So I had older people ahead of me that poured into me and spent time with me and taught me things and, would pull me aside and say, hey, you're being stupid about this. Don't do that, right? Things like that. Hey, this is great. Keep doing that. And so, to younger people, find a mentor in their space, and there's lots of them available. Find multiple mentors that you can network with, go to lunch with. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I still ask questions. I was at a lunch with a guy today, a younger guy. He brought something up. I'd never heard of it. I'm like, well, tell me about that. I don't know what that is. I could be afraid and be like, oh, gosh, I'm supposed to be the expert, and now I'm asking this younger guy about something in our industry that probably I should have known. But don't be insecure about it. Say, I don't know, but I'd like to learn, and just have that whole open mind of learning and learning from other people.
Mm-hmm. What is the best piece of advice you have received from your mentor early on in your career that you still remember to this day?
Probably the best piece of advice is it's a small world, and you never know. I have so many examples of people that I thought, I will never see them again. I will never talk to them again. I will never interface with this person again. And 10 years down the road, they pop up in some place that you never imagined they would be, and they have some authority or power or influence on whatever it is you're working on. And you're like, wow, who would have ever dreamed that, John Doe or Jane Smith would have shown up here? And I'm sure glad I was nice to him, right? I mean, so, life is long and the world is very, very small. Mm-hmm. And you never know when somebody is going to pop back up in your future. So be cognizant of that in the way you go about your business life.
Mm-hmm. And when people look back on the deals you've been involved in, what do you hope they remember most about the way you do business?
I hope that number one is the care that we gave them, right? I mean, I think we always strive to get a good outcome, and if we're professionals and we do a good job and we're excellent at what we do, we call it executing excellence. But that should just be the standard that everybody has, right? I mean, there's a lot of smart people out there doing a lot of great deals, and they execute it with excellence. But are you doing it with care? Are you making the world a better place because you did it? That's what I want them to remember our firm and me by is, hey, this person really cared about me as a human and helped come alongside of me to achieve a goal in my life that is very critical and important to me. And they did a great job, but they cared about me in the process. That's what I would want people to say.
Thank you so much, Michael, for visiting me
and
M&A Access today.
Yeah.
This has been very educational and very insightful. How can people get in touch with you and learn more about what you do for Kingdom Architects?
Well, our website, kingdomarchitects.com, is probably the easiest way. We've got an info line on there. Shoot us an email, and we always answer and would love to connect with people that think that they need to know us.
Thank you, Michael, so much. And thank you so much for listening to M&A Access. Until next time, stay tuned.
These kinds of conversations are happening all the time. We'd love for you to join in, whether it's through our monthly webinars, our biannual conferences, or our SEMA certification, and then we have our chapter events across the nation all year round. You can find out more at amaaonline.com. Until then, see you next time.